Hello. Thank you for coming to my impromptu live stream. Somebody asks, will it be on iOS 2? It is on iOS 2. It'll be on both, and we're testing both. And today I'm testing Android, which looks very good. This is pretty smooth, you guys. This is exciting. If you every time you press the heart button, it makes me happy. Whoever's doing that, keep doing it. We like to see that. Anonymous Crab asks, crab emoji question mark? Yes. John Ward asks, in relation to product development, Mills frequently brings up, quote, second order consequences as an ongoing concern. These are unanticipated problems that crop up when you deploy something to a lot of people at once. Are there any features you would like to add to Substack but have it because of concerns related to these second order problems? I found out to my horror the other day that I think I probably used the term second order incorrectly a lot. I was talking to an economist and I said, oh, a second order effect, he said, do you mean an ensemble effect, you idiot? So I'm not even sure if I'm using the term second order correctly. But the general idea, what we mean when we talk about that is basically multiplayer consequences, usually. If you design a feature that people use a certain way, it might be like, hey, if I post this way, or I use my app this way, or I do this thing, there's kind of like the individual experience of, does that work? Does it make sense? Does it do what I want? And then in a system like Substack, a lot of what you're doing is actually creating like a multiplayer experience, a multiplayer game. There are incentives that you create. There are emergent consequences of how you set up the system to behave. And one of our deep beliefs at Substack is that those consequences are important and maybe tend to dominate over time. And so basically a lot of things we build specifically with this idea of, what is it going to mean when everybody on Substack can go live and have people discover their thing, and maybe they go live together. Like there's all kinds of, it's like, how is this going to shape the economic incentives, the social incentives, the emergent feel of the platform at the equilibrium when lots of people are doing that thing? So is there something we haven't shipped because of those concerns? Tons of stuff. And I think a lot of like just when we're considering what to do, we think a lot about what's the game we're creating. That's how I kind of think of it. Like when we launched our leaderboards initially, we made a very conscious decision to rank the leaderboards by money. Like how much money so the top publication in history or whatever is like the one that's making the most revenue. And that's born of long experience I've had where every time you create a status competition, people will play it. First of all, they'll play it if there's like material benefit to be had, like, oh, I'm going to get subscribers, I'm going to get money, I'm going to get these things. But even if there's not that much of that, but it's just like you look cool by doing it, people will still have a tendency to play the game you put in front of them. And the game on Substack is make things that people value and subscribe to and want to pay for. And so if we made a leaderboard that's like, here's the thing that got the most upvotes or the most replies or the most whatever, you can see the effects of that. Whereas if you make a game that says, make the most money, if people want to game that, we don't mind. That's the whole idea here. I don't know if I have any specific examples. Another one that I often use as a illustrative point on this is we want unsubscribing from a Substack to be predictable and relatively easy. We don't want it to be something that you like do accidentally, but there are some, if you're looking at it from the perspective of an individual Substack publisher, you might be tempted to do the thing that like scammy gyms and phone companies do, where you just make it really hard to unsubscribe and you have to like phone them up and to go with this long process. And from the perspective of one individual publisher, that kind of might make sense because you're sort of, hey, the people that want to unsubscribe, they're not my customers anyway. Like if I'm a jerk to them, who cares? From a purely economic standpoint, that might make sense. But at a platform level, the fact that you reliably know that you can unsubscribe from somebody on Substack means that you can, with greater confidence, subscribe. And so if we can say, hey, look, it's always going to work this way, it's always going to be pretty good, it means that everybody can be ahead in a way that would be impossible if everybody was like coming up with their own line. Mill's laughing my fucking ass off. When I watch this live stream, I'm like, oh man, this is a real ass company. Yes, it is. Real company confirmed. All right. Bo asks, I was reading a note by a comedian on Substack the other day, and it made me chuckle. I don't subscribe to their Substack, but I would have tipped them something for brightening my day with a funny note. Is there a reason platforms don't introduce this as an option? Why do I always have to subscribe? Maybe it's because nobody would tip. Curious about this. I'm distracted by the chat. Ken Klippenstein's in here. This is very exciting. Why don't we do tips? Why don't we have more one-off payments on Substack? This is a thing that lots of people ask for. It is a thing that I think some people would do. And it is something that could make sense for us to do at some point. The thing that I think about a lot here, though, is subscription is this really powerful model. The fact that people are willing to sign up at $5 a month for someone that they trust and value, it's sort of like a magical, unexpected psychological property that makes the Substack world go round. And anything that we could introduce that could cannibalize subscriptions or that could confuse the story of what Substack is, or generally kind of like erode from that central, extremely powerful thing, is something that would do more harm than good. And I think people are often, you feel this, you're like, oh, I'm reading this, I want to pay. But like, in reality, what would happen is people would pay like $1. And the number of times that would have to happen to make up for one lost subscription is just so high that I think in effect what would happen is the only way to do one-off payments that would be really good is if they are completely complementary to subscription. So either something your paying subscribers would want to do as like an add-on, or as something that serves as a very explicit on-ramp to subscription. I think about this, like if we ever added something for live where you could, throw money at me right now, I would love that. That'd be cool. But the way I would want that to work is it's like, hey, maybe you do this tip, you do this thing, but then that gets you a bit of subscription. So it's sort of like it becomes not an alternative, not like, I'm gonna, throw $1 in the hat instead of subscribing, but it becomes a way for somebody who's initially intrigued to kind of like get their foot in the door and maybe lead to subscription later. So long story short, would we do it? Have we thought about doing it? Yes. Would we do it? Maybe, but only if we were very confident that it was adding to subscription, not taking away from subscription. If you are Chris Best, who's Chris Worst, I'm not going to answer this, but I will answer this to bring up a story of my own ridiculousness, which is I've lived my whole life with the last name Best, and so every time somebody meets me, they go, so, are you the best? Who's the worst? Chris Beast. I've heard them all. And so I know very intimately that after the 1,000th time, you're like, okay, I get it. And yet, when I meet someone with a funny last name, I always make a joke about it. I'm almost like, oh, wow. I do the exact same thing. And so I can't judge harshly people who make the Chris Best jokes. It's fair enough. Is there a plan or even a desire to add another tier for subscribers in the future? So we have monthly, yearly, and founding that you can configure. We have a flexible founding tier today, but could you add even more? This is another one that we've thought about and talked about a lot. I wouldn't want to rule it out. I think there's something we could do. This is another case, though, where there might be non-obvious benefits to the simplicity. In the early days of Substack, when we were recruiting a lot of people from Patreon, one thing that happened was Patreon had sort of like extensive tier options. So it was very common you would have kind of like $1 a month to say hello, and $3 a month to be this, and then $6 a month I'll send you a postcard, and $10 a month I'll get you socks, and at $20 a month you can, have dinner at my house. Or like there's sort of like you'd have this like long menu of possible things. And the benefit of that is there's lots of options. You're getting some good sort of like pricing sensitivity where people who want to pay more can pay more. That's good. The downside of it is less obvious, which is it becomes kind of like a perplexing array of choices. It puts downward pressure on the lowest tier. And maybe most importantly, we would talk to people who were like, I got into this thing to write or to make my podcast or to do this thing. And instead I spent all my time writing postcards and mailing socks. And so I think you want to be careful. The way that we would always approach this and have approached this is we want to add more flexibility. We want to add more power. We want to let you make more money always. That's how we make more money. But we want to do it in a simple enough way where we're not actually, we're not kind of like harming the overall value by adding, complexity on top of complexity. And especially I don't want people on Substack to feel like you have to be mailing people socks. You shouldn't have to do that. That's not what I subscribe. I subscribe to read what you're writing, to listen to what you have to say. Simon K. Jones asks, is this on? Seems like it's on. I see people in the chat. Will people be able to see when you're live by going to your page? I imagine we will add that. What about short format courses? I think courses in general are very interesting. There's one of the interesting things about Substack is I feel like there's this tremendous surface area of opportunity. There's so many things that we could be doing that we are excited about. I think about courses. I think about especially cohorted courses. I think about books. I think about live events. I think about, there's a whole sort of like universe of stuff that very clearly fits within the Substack economy in the long run. And then the thing we always have to wrestle with is just like, how many of these can we do at once and actually put a first-class effort into it? So, would we ever do courses? Yes, I think it's a very good idea. Cohorted courses are especially interesting and powerful. When will we do it? I don't know. That's the truth. Where is Wyatt? Nobody knows. Wyatt is a mystery. I definitely went on this Chris Best Substack, right? I didn't accidentally go live on some of the Substack. Excellent. It's amazing there's so many of you here still. I haven't bored you to death yet. All right, I'm going to go to the chat. Wyatt is in the chat. The elusive Wyatt has shown up in my live stream. This was a joke around the office for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about. Wyatt works at Substack and is amazing and long-suffering, and recently made it so that anybody on Substack can write posts and get subscribers, which is one of the most exciting things we've shipped in a while to my mind. All right, I think we've answered some good questions. I'd say you'll have to tell me, maybe you could reply to the note or reply to the chat. Tell me how this experience was for you. How was the video quality? Could you see the chat? Was everything kind of working? We're testing this Android feature is why I'm here today. So let me know how it was. Thank you for showing up. I was very shocked that so many of you piled in when I went live, and also that any of you are still here. It's amazing and humbling, so thank you. And we'll see you next time.